The call came on a Tuesday morning, just after the rain stopped. Claire Morgan stood by the library window, watching clouds pull apart, when she finally pressed Ethan's name on her phone. She almost hung up before it rang. Almost. But this time, she didn't let fear decide. "Can we meet?" she asked. When he answered, "Today, by the River Cafe," Ethan agreed without hesitation. He always did. Claire was the one person who never asked for much, so when she did, he showed up. The cafe sat near the water, old and familiar, with wooden tables and soft music that never changed. Claire arrived early and chose a seat by the window. She wrapped her hands around a mug she barely touched. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she felt, or maybe younger. She couldn't tell anymore. She thought about how long she had lived the same days, wake up early, walk to work, smile at neighbors, come home to quiet. She told herself it was enough. For years, she believed it. But something had shifted. Ethan walked in with his usual energy, shaking rain from his jacket, smiling wide. He looked like his father when he smiled. That always pulled at her heart. "Hey, Aunt Claire," he said, sliding into the chair. She sounded serious. She nodded. "I am." The word landed heavy between them. She didn't start with small talk. She didn't ask about his job or his art or whether he was sleeping enough. She had done that for years. Today was different. "I'm selling the house," she said. Ethan blinked. Once, twice. "What?" "The house," she repeated calmly. "I put it on the market this morning." He laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. But her face stayed. "Still? Why would you do that?" He asked. That's our place." Claire breathed in slowly. "It was my place," she said gently, "and it gave us safety when we needed it. But I can't stay there forever." Ethan leaned back, confused. "You never said you were unhappy?" "I wasn't unhappy," she replied. "I was just quiet." That answer didn't help him. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration rising. "So what changed?" Claire reached into her bag and pulled out a folded letter. The paper looked worn, like it had been opened too many times. "This," she said. Ethan hesitated, then took it. He didn't read it fully, just the name. At the bottom, Daniel Harper. The name stirred something distant. "Who's this?" "It's my first love," Claire said, her voice steady but soft. "From a long time ago." Ethan looked up sharply. "You're serious?" "Yes." She told him about the letter, about how Daniel had written from Vancouver, how his words were simple, honest, and careful. He hadn't made promises, only asked a question. What if we talked again? What if the years didn't erase everything? Claire hadn't answered right away. She had walked for hours that day, past streets she knew by heart, feeling like a stranger in her own life. She realized she had been living for stability, not for truth. Ethan pushed the letter back toward her. "So you're leaving town?" "Might," she said. "I'm going to visit first." "For how long?" She paused. "I don't know." That was the part that scared him most. "You can't just decide this alone," Ethan said. "What about me?" Claire met his eyes. "I thought about you first, always." "But you didn't tell me," he said, hurt slipping through. "You already decided." She nodded. "Because if I didn't, I never would." The words sounded firm, but inside, she felt fragile. She had spent her life choosing others. After her sister and brother-in-law died, she took Ethan in without question. She became steady, responsible. She buried her own wants so deeply that even she forgot they existed. Until now. "I love you," she said quietly. "That hasn't changed." Ethan stood abruptly. His chair scraped the floor. People glanced over, then looked away. "I need air," he said. He stepped outside, the river rushing beside him. He remembered the house as it had been when he was 17. Claire staying up late to make sure he ate, sitting silently with him when words failed, never leaving. And now she was choosing to go. Claire watched him through the glass, her chest tight. She didn't follow. She knew this moment belonged to him. When Ethan came back, his eyes were calmer but distant. "When are you leaving?" "Next week." He nodded slowly. "Okay." That one word hurt more than anger. They paid separately. They walked to their cars in silence. Before getting in, Claire touched his arm. "You can come visit," she said. "Anytime." Ethan gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sure, that night the house felt different. Every room echoed. Claire packed carefully, choosing only what mattered. She paused in the hallway, fingers brushing the wall where Ethan's height marks still remained. In his room, Ethan sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He told himself he should be happy for her, that she deserved more than routine. But fear pressed down on him, fear of being left behind again. Claire lay awake long after midnight, the letter on her nightstand. She wondered if she was being selfish. She wondered if courage always felt this lonely dot outside. The house stood quiet, holding its breath. Neither of them knew that this choice, this single, shocking step was already setting something new in motion, and nothing would stay the same again. Claire left on a misty morning. The sky was gray, the kind of gray that makes the world feel both empty and full at the same time. She didn't say much at the door, just a quiet hug for Ethan and a promise she would call. Ethan had wanted to stop her, to beg her to stay, but he only watched. Somehow, watching her go felt worse than any words he could speak. The car drove off, disappearing into the fog, and the house suddenly seemed too big, too quiet, too hollow. The first few days without her were strange. Ethan wandered through the empty rooms, touching objects she had left behind. Her coffee mug still sat in the sink, her scarf hung on the coat rack, and the little bookshelf she had built for him when he was a boy was still in his room. Everything was exactly the same, and yet everything had changed. He tried to focus on school and his art, but every time he picked up a brush, her absence hit him like a cold wind. Then came the letters. Claire wrote every few days. Not long messages, just enough to make him feel her presence without overwhelming him. She told him about the train ride to Vancouver, the view from the window, the smell of coffee in the city streets, and how Daniel had waited for her at the station. Her words were careful, honest, and full of hope. Reading them made Ethan smile and ache at the same time. She was living a life he hadn't dared to imagine for himself. One night, as he sat painting in the dim light of his studio, he received a message that made him freeze. It was from Claire. "I'm proud of you." Along with it was a photo of an art gallery in Seattle. His own name was on a flyer announcing a small exhibition of his paintings. Ethan stared at it, unable to breathe at first. He hadn't told her about the gallery, hadn't shown anyone but his closest friends. Somehow, she had believed in him even before he believed in himself. The realization hit him harder than he expected. Claire's absence, her daring to step into the unknown, had inspired him without her even knowing it. She had always given so much to him quietly, without expecting anything in return, and now he understood the depth of that gift. His first instinct was to call her, but he hesitated. He didn't want to sound weak or needy. Finally, after pacing the room and looking at the walls that still felt empty, he dialed her number. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, warm, and familiar. I got your message," he said, his voice low but steady. "The gallery, you did this for me." "I did," she replied, a quiet laugh in her tone. "I knew you had the talent, you just needed a push." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "I don't know what to say." "Say you're going to go," she said simply. "Go show them what you can do." And he did. When he arrived in Seattle for the exhibition, the gallery was alive with light and color. Its paintings lined the walls, each one telling a story of solitude, longing, and quiet joy. People moved through the space, murmuring admiration, taking in the work he had poured his heart into. And then he saw them, Claire and Daniel, standing together near the entrance. They didn't look perfect, but they looked hopeful, alive. The way people do when they take a risk and trust in love again. Claire spotted him almost immediately. Her face lit up with a smile, the kind that could warm the coldest room. Daniel followed her gaze, and for a moment Ethan felt something strange, a mixture of relief and awe. They had chosen each other, yet somehow that choice had opened the door for him to choose himself. The exhibition began, and Ethan felt a confidence he hadn't known before. People asked him questions about his work, about the colors, the stories, the emotions behind each piece. He spoke freely, and for the first time, his voice didn't falter. He realized that Claire's shocking decision, her leaving, her choosing love and adventure, had shown him that life wasn't about waiting for permission or playing it safe. It was about stepping forward, even when it scared him. After the crowd thinned, Claire approached him. "You look different," she said softly. "Confident, happy, feel different," he admitted. You made me see that I could do more than just stay." Claire's eyes glistened. "I never left you, Ethan. I just wanted you to find your wings." They walked through the gallery together, past the paintings that held his memories and his struggles. Daniel followed a few steps behind, giving them space, but always there. The three of them stopped in front of a painting that had been the hardest to finish. It was a river, flowing strong and unstoppable, with autumn leaves drifting on the surface. Ethan realized he had painted that day after Claire left. He had captured not just a river, but the moment of courage and fear, of love and loss, of beginnings and endings. "That's beautiful," Claire said, her voice breaking slightly. "It's like you captured all of this, everything." Ethan looked at her, then at Daniel, then back at the painting. He understood finally that life was not about holding on too tightly. It was about allowing people and yourself to take risks, to step into the unknown, to love, to fail, to grow. Later, when the gallery closed and the lights dimmed, Ethan stood by the window, watching the city lights reflect on the water. Claire came to stand beside him. He didn't need to speak. The silence was full of understanding, of shared history, and of hope for the future. Daniel joined them, gently placing a hand on Claire's back. And Ethan felt no jealousy, no resentment, tonally gratitude. He realized then that her choice, the shocking choice, that had terrified him, had not broken their bond. It had strengthened. It ought to taught him that love was not about possession or fear, but about trust, courage, and the willingness to let people grow. Claire squeezed his shoulder. "You did this on your own," she said. "You chose to believe in yourself." Ethan nodded, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. "And you chose to live your own story," he replied as they stood there. The three of them together, Ethan understood that sometimes the bravest act was not staying where you were expected, but stepping forward into uncertainty. And sometimes stepping forward alone could inspire someone else to do the same. The night ended with laughter, with gentle conversation, and with a feeling that nothing in their lives would ever stay the same again. Yet somehow it felt right. The river flowed outside the window, relentless and bright, carrying away the old and making room for everything new. And in that quiet, glowing moment, Ethan knew one thing clearly. Love was not about shock or fear. It was about change, about courage, and about the people who dared to take a leap not just for themselves, but for everyone they cared about. From that night onward, life felt different for all of them. Claire and Daniel explored their rekindled love, learning to forgive time and trust each other again. Ethan pursued his art with confidence, inspired by her faith in him. And the bond between them, Claire and Ethan, remained unbreakable, stronger than ever, built on love, respect, and the courage to change. The shocking choice had changed everything, but it had done so beautifully. It had shown them that love was not static. It was alive, flowing like the river outside the gallery, unstoppable, and always full of possibility. And with that, a new chapter began for all of them. One where fear no longer ruled, and hope guided every step forward.